Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage we're looking at the rear brakes on the Jaguar XK8. Now the front brakes have been completely rebuilt, everything's new and everything's upgraded. The back brakes similar, but the difference is that I'm not going to rebuild the calipers, basically because I don't have the rebuild kits, and because of that I shan't bother powder coating these calipers, because if I need to powder coat, I've got to strip out all the rubber parts. So that will happen at a later date. But as previously said, actually the brakes are in very good condition. It's almost a shame to change them, but I want to upgrade them. So it is where it is. So we're going to show you how to do a strip down on the rear brakes. And in doing so, you'll learn how to adjust the handbrake, which is very important, and which some people do struggle a little bit with. So we're going to crack on. The only tools you're really going to need for this job, if we exclude the spare parts and bleeding it afterwards, is an Allen key. I think this is maybe an 8. I'm not absolutely sure. It fits anyway. A robust straight blade screwdriver. A good pair of reasonably strong pliers, and a dead blow hammer or copper mallet or rubber mallet or something else that's not going to damage the car if you use it to knock things off with. Well, the only thing you've missed so far is me taking the wheel off. So first mission is release your handbrake. So the wheel or hub should turn, but it may be stiff, and that'll be a combination of the pads dragging but also the handbrake dragging. The handbrakes on the XK8 are notoriously poor, and that's generally down to lack of use and bad adjustment, because automatic, you know, it doesn't actually matter that much, because when you're in park nothing is going anywhere. So let's just see how you do it. In order to take this disc off, I need to slacken the handbrake, which is a drum brake, and it uses the inside surface of this disc, this hub, as its drum. And at the moment those handbrake shoes will be pushed out into the shoe, into the drum, and if there's any ridge at all that they've left through wear, you won't be able to draw the disc off the front. I think it's best to do this first whilst everything's nice and straight and aligned and nothing's wobbly. So there's this thing here called the access port on the disc. Wind that round until it's near the top. Put in a straight blade screwdriver, and obviously if you use a light and get yourself in the right position you better see this, but I'll show you where I'm touching after I've took it off. You should be able to get the screwdriver to engage with the teeth on a really coarse gear wheel, and the teeth will be sticking out towards you like that. And you can push the teeth up by doing that, or down by doing that. And I can never remember which way. So I'm going down. Let's see what's happening. So I'm winding that little gear downhill, and I can tell that is slackening it off. So I've slackened the handbrake. Next, your pair of robust pliers. You've got to remove this clip, and that stops the two pieces of the caliper moving relative to each other. So if you grab it here, where this ear goes underneath, and twist, so I'm going to twist in the plier that way, then you take the piece that's touching down and then pull towards you. Be careful obviously it doesn't fly off. Grab hold of here, give it a little tug, and then go again. There we go. And that comes out. So there's this short here, fits in that hole, and this loop goes underneath that tab. Once you've got one off, the other one is really easy. And there's the clip off. Next, same as on the front brakes, you've got two slide pillars. And these are the things we're going to use the Allen key on. And I'll show you these when I've taken them off for ease. A little plastic cap. One at the bottom. And put our Allen key in. And undo. Always got to think backwards. Here's that way. This is where my mallet comes in handy. Give it a bit of shock and it should go. And these pins you want to undo fully. They won't fall out because they're held in a little rubber boot, which is the slide rubber. My brakes are the ATE8 brakes, which are standard, certainly on the earlier XK8s. And I have the 308mm front discs. I think the rears vary a lot less and are quite consistent across the range. The one additional item I forgot to mention when you're doing caliper and brake related stuff is a bungee cord. And the reason that's useful is you can use it to hold the weight of your caliper whilst it's still connected and frees your hands up. It's very useful. So a couple of times through the bump stop. So now we've got the brake undone. Let's give myself a different light source. I just need to wriggle the whole caliper until she comes out. So I'm pulling this radially away from the axle basically, towards the front of the car. I should, there we go, come straight off. Oh, I can prop that there after all that. And the pads pop straight off there. One pad, and there's the other pad, just snapped in to the bore of the caliper with that clip. Now before you can take your disc off, you've got to take the carrier off. So the carrier bolts on the back are 15. So not going to be easy to show you guys, so I'll show you when I've done. But yeah, 15mm on there, and remove the carrier. That's the carrier taken off. Smaller version of what's on the front with 15mm bolts. Now the disc, if you've released a handbrake, should be loose. If you're having trouble at this stage, and they can stick to the hub, give it a tap with your dead blow hammer here where the gap is in your back plate. The brake's now out of the way. Then rotate it, hit it, rotate it, hit it, so that you don't cock it all over one way and then it won't come off. And there we go. There are our handbrake shoes. And I'll show you the inside. See, the inside of the disc is the drum brake for your handbrake. And if you get a lip on this edge here, then getting these back off can be a real pain. So this is the mechanism I was using to slacken the brakes off, and I was accessing it through the disc, through that hole, and working it like so. And the down on this side slackens it, up will tighten it. And when you come to readjust your brakes, once we've reassembled everything, you'll be working that up until it starts to drag on these shoes, and then slacken it off a little bit. Next I want to get the Flexi hose off, and this one's a little different to the front because it's held in place by a clip. For this bit, I've got a 10mm spanner because a brake union goes into that hose just there. Trick is in finding good access. To be able to move your spanner. There, I managed to loosen it. Once you've removed the hose, there's a clip, and it's got a lip on it, and you need to slide it out. You're going to slide that clip out to release the hose. I think they call them horseshoe clips or C-clips. When you're staring at it, it's pretty obvious how you've got to work it. That's just popped out. The clips come out, but the hose has not. There we go. This is a good nudge. Wanted to stay in that bracket. And we're out. So we've got the caliper off. The hose has got like a D-shaped end that goes through a bracket, and it was just stuck. Literally needed a good tug. And the last piece connecting the hose to the caliper is this Banjo joint, as they're called here. And I'll just get a bit of rag and we'll do this one on the bench. Okay, so here's the Banjo butt joint in question. Look at my gloves. First thing is, just note the direction that the hose is going off in. Just above that pin. This is original and has a square section and is therefore located to go a particular way. The aftermarket upgrade ones I've got won't have that. So knowing that it goes away from the bleed nipple just above that slide pin is quite important. Bit of penetrant. 11mm socket. And then there we go. Just keep the area reasonably clean. It looks dirtier than it is. It's generally just the colour. It's very black. There we go, that's undone. So just so you can see how it goes on. There we go. There is a copper washer either side of that block, and the bolt is hollow and has holes in the sides of it, so it allows the fluid to go up the pipe. That's what's known as a banjo fitting. And because I'm not fully restoring the rear brakes, my plan is to empty out what fluid I've got in there, and then quite quickly fit everything and put it back so I don't dirty it up. That's quite a dark colour to the brake fluid that was in there. It'll all get flushed out anyway as I bleed it all through and change the fluid, but all helps. And this is what we're replacing it with. And you can see it hasn't got a square section, it's got this really nice elegant fitting on the end, which is better in my opinion because it leaves a lot more access, but it won't orientate itself. So that's why it's important to take note of what you're removing and the angle that it sits at. So next thing, get a couple of copper washers and a Banjo bolt. So this is the bolt that's going to go through that hole. You can see it's got a hole straight through the side and a bore up it. And that's going to allow the fluid to get through the bolt, out of that side hole, and then down the pipe to the rest of our brake system. These have got a crank. Obviously you want that crank to move the pipe away from the caliper just a little. So I've got 2 copper washers, brand new. Pop that straight onto there. Never force anything like this. Take your time. You do not want to cross-thread it. In fact, I think I'm going to test fit. Let me look some more. Look at that. Totally different thread. Looks like I'll be reusing this Banjo bolt. So, quite different. So that's very disappointing. Always found EBC stuff to be very good. This, maybe this is fine for the later cars, but certainly on mine, not so. So I'll be reusing this bolt, obviously with new copper washers. I'm just going to look at the length and make sure everything's going to clear and pull up properly. It's also only got 1 Banjo port. Obviously I know that works because that's what was on. But difference. Well, 2 copper washers will certainly let it pull up because that's got no pressure on it whatsoever. Unexpected. This may of course just be another example of my very early XK8 having some non-production parts on it. So maybe everybody else is absolutely fine. It's just me. Yeah, that's nipped it. So it's going to be fine. Not what we expected though. So switch back to 11mm socket. For the back of the car, I managed to get the all-in-one axle set for the rear, So pads and discs from EBC. And what we're after first is our pads. So again, for the rear, we've gone red stuff. Then we've got our discs. It's the same system as I used on the front. So this thermic coated, grooved, vented disc set. Difference is it has an internal drum as well. Take one of the rear pads, they've got a built-in rubber anti-squeal device. One with a clip goes inside the caliper and piston even, and one without the clip goes on the outer, and we will have to push back the caliper to allow for these nice new chunky discs. There it is. This is the C-clip that holds the brake line in position. Just use the old one to show you. So it's got the D shape on there, which goes for a D-shaped hole, and with a groove, again something pale, there you go, round it. This just slides in, whoops, that way up, and stops it pulling back through the bracket that it's attached to. So you're going to pop your brake line through the bracket. It's got a D shape on it, so it's only going through there one way. There we go. I think that's it. It's gone in. Ooh-wee. Let me take our C-clip. Push it in. That stops it dropping down. Then I'll put our brake pipe union back in. Ooh. This is not an easy access item. In fact, I go as far as to say all the things I've fitted on the XK8 so far. Ew, brake fluid in the ear hole's not good. This is the worst access. I couldn't even explain how to do it. It's just get amongst it and see what you can do, boys and girls. There's not even any point pretending that that was easy to get the brake pipe back on. Made sure we got a nice clean surface here to mate up to. And I'm not going to change the brake shoes. I do actually have a complete set of brand new Borg & Beck pads, but I can see by looking at these that they've never even touched the disc, drum even, while it's been moving. So it would literally just be a waste. So most of this was done using standard equipment before I had the car. So what we're going to do now is load up the new disc. Make sure you get your port in the right position. So at the top there. And this should go home nicely. and because the shoes have been wound away, no contact. Next we're going to refit our carrier. Just move the caliper out of the way for a moment. If you're not using thermically coated discs like this with the black finish that wears off, then the discs will be coated in a liberal dose of a protective film, so I'm kind of grease. Use plenty of brake cleaner and get that all off. You don't want that coating your brake pads. Eventually it'll wear off, but until then it'll be dangerous and you'll contaminate your pads and they won't last half as long if you haven't gone through a fence in the meantime. So I'm only not giving these a really good scrub because of this coating. For those of you who haven't seen the previous videos, the black thermic coating wears away eventually because the pads are touching it, but it only wears away where the pads touch it, meaning that you don't get the build-up of rust on the edge of the disc, which then wears your pads, which causes there to be a ridge on the edge of your disc, which wears your pads, which gets bigger, etc, etc. So basically it just wears away the bit that it's going to touch. So very important you use a new pad when you use these sorts of discs. There's no way of getting a conventional size torque wrench on these, and they were a lot easier to remove than the fronts for that very reason. Just isn't the space inside the arch and you can't turn the wheel. Now, before I put my caliper on and therefore my pads, I'm just going to adjust the handbrake because it's easier to move without the pads in contact. So this time, putting my screwdriver through the hole, finding that wheel, that cog, there we go, and I'm winding it up. And we're waiting until it starts to grip a little. So spinning it uphill. Still move that relatively easily. It's solid. Ooh. So now what I'm going to do is back it off a little. There we go. And that's the correct position for your handbrake adjustment. Tighten it up until this doesn't move, then back it off until it does. Ensuring obviously your handbrake is off inside the car. Okay, so the caliper is sitting here. There we go. And then maneuver that into position. Okay. Make sure your slide pins are pushed all the way back. That's where I'm struggling with. They've slipped a little forward. There we go, better, much better. And I can wriggle the slide pins forward, put our Allen key back in. Don't forget to put your slide pillar caps on. Keep them nice and clean. And the last thing we're doing is we're putting back our clip that stops the brakes from rattling. There we go. We're on. Just give them a little thump. Make sure they're all the way into their holes. Just dandy. That's gone tight. There's a grip in the pads. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to slacken off the hydraulic hose and then re-nip it up wherever it settles. So there we are, all on, all finished. I'll just illuminate my lamp and show you one more time the bit I struggled with. Oops, was just getting that metal pipe to screw into the fitting. You've got to pull it down, and it's got a bit of spring to it, into a well located hose, and you really need two hands and you can't get them in there. So you've got to be pulling down on the metal brake pipe fitting at the same time as screwing it in, and your fingers just aren't strong enough. Yeah, bit of a battle, a little bit of swearing may be needed to get that bit in. Other than that, not too bad a job. Tad's maybe a bit out of breath though, and my hats fell off. So, brakes all back in position, front and rear. The only thing that I've not done is powder coated these castings and used a full rebuild kit on the rear calipers. That's just because I don't have one. That's something I'll look into for another time. So next time that you see the XK8 on the brake Saga, we shall be showing you how to bleed the brakes the easy way. Right, that's me done. So see you again soon on To the Garage.